Hello and welcome to the DNX Show. I'm one of your hosts. My name's Todd Ryan. I'm jumping on the space right now with my co-host, Josh Reason. We broadcast. Hello again, everyone. This is Todd Ryan. I'm one of your co-hosts. Josh Reason is our other co-host. Josh, I'm streaming also on YouTube, so I try to give a little intro. We stream on YouTube. We're live on X as well. Good morning, Josh. How's everything going with you? Early afternoon there. What's up? I don't know if usually it says this space is recording if I jump in, but I can't remember what it said to me when I clicked on the co-host thing. Normally, there is a way, and I'll tell you later how you can edit the title of the space. It's not important, but Jeff, yeah, cool. Josh, thanks. It's easy. I mean, really, it was you saying, "Hey, let's do this." You want to do one, and then we did one, and we're like, it's easy to talk about domains. There's so much going on in the fucking space. I mean, there's so much news, and I can't wait to, I like this because we can jump all over the place and just talk. It's all domain investing, and we're going to talk today about April sales that we've had personally, and then the feeling I'm getting out there in the space. I love, on X, at least everybody posts about their successes and how their April's going, and we'll talk about that. And then Andrew Alleman, he had a show his own saying here's what he did Q1. So we're going to jump into a lot of stuff today. So it's both of us. This is our new time, everybody. We're going to be doing this. I don't know until we decide not to. I think Josh and I we're going to try to go right up to NamesCon till we get together there and see each other and go, are we done? No, but it's fun and it's easy. So we're looking forward to this every Thursday, 10 a.m. for me. That's in Los Angeles. Josh holds it down, East Coast. So it's 1 p.m. over there. I want to say hi to Arif. He came on stage. Arif, thanks for joining us on stage. This is a open stage. All are welcome. There's a lot of people I'd love to talk with today. So if you can, raise your hand and bring you up. But what's up? Fantastic. Thanks. And yeah, I do see the record button now. It makes sense. Well, before we get rolling, Josh, I wanted to ask you, because I didn't get to ask you last week, I wanted to really ask what was happening with pickleball, with what you've been doing. But Andre Agassi, like big news. He's now a pro, and I guess he won his first event with Anna Lee Waters, who I didn't know, she's number one, I guess, as female or as the mixed player. But tell me a little bit about what do you think of Andre Agassi now being a pro pickleball player, and then what's up with you? When's the next tournament for you?
will be. He's probably like a 5-0. So I, you know, I think that it was good for attracting attention, good for the media for him to play with Annalie, and I'm sure she enjoyed it. But in terms of like his level, it's not quite there. For me, my next tournament is in Atlanta in 2 weeks, which is a PPA event where all the top pros will be. And that is the only one I've got scheduled for now before I go back to the UK in the summer. I like to spend at least a month, and this time I'm going to be spending 6 weeks back in my homeland. I like taking my family there, so there'll be 6 weeks of no pickleball.
Um, so can you beat Andre? I mean, he's 55. He's sort of built like
Yeah,
me. Fucked up.
definitely, definitely.
Okay, so you could, and then so you're heading back. How long do you head back to the UK for? A couple months or what?
Um, yeah, I will. I'll be there for 6 weeks. Going to be there from June 23rd until the beginning of August. Um, basically during my kids' summer holidays until they have to go back to school.
You know, well, cool. We're going to get into if anybody wants to share. You know, like I said, raise your hand. We want to hear, especially when we talk about this first topic of April sales, the feeling, the vibe for you know uh, the market out there now. What's going on in the domain marketplace? If you want to check out some of the topics we're going to touch on, and we may stick to it, we may not, you can check out our outline at dnx.show.com. I'm just kidding. It's dnx.show. I do have dnxshow.com, and I was going to say this for those listening that operate on an alternate extension like we're doing with dnx.show. That's for this show. Of course, you go to dnx.com and you see a tool that Josh has built, and we're going to talk about that today. But we have our outline at dnx.show, and I always would say definitely now in the future, maybe less, but if you're going to operate on an alternate extension, it is fantastic, or if you can register your .com in that extension. So dnx.show, the equivalent .com, dnxshow.com, and I have pointed to dnx.show. But Josh, when someone is operating on an alternate extension, do you think that's a smart move always? Just so when people talk about you're going to lose traffic to the .com, it's a way to really stop any traffic loss. But if you can register it, does that make sense? Get the .com and point it to the other one if you plan on marketing the unique extension.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that if you wanna brand on anything other than .com, um, I get it. I do understand I do understand the appeal. But then, and I think that there are um, various options and like iterations of how you want to brand and how you want to connect your brand with the domain. And actually, there was a really interesting thread or post from a founder that I saw yesterday um, regarding. Did you see the guy from Zero dot email?
Yeah, I
Did you
did, and
see
I know
that,
I
Todd?
remember Ish saying something about zero email that he picked up on his podcast recently. But anyway, yeah. So what was the story that
Yeah.
the guy that runs the
Yeah.
company
So,
posted?
yeah, I mean, he did a post yesterday, about 24 hours ago, and he said which domain. Currently, he's branding on the number zero dot email, and it sounds like his brand is zero email. Um, and he basically gave four domain options. Which domain do you like the most? And he had the option zero email dot AI, mail zero with the number dot AI, the number zero dot email, which is the one that they're using, and mail the number zero dot io. Um, and when I saw that post, the first thing I looked at was, I wonder what. I mean, the company is branding as zero email. I was like, I wonder what the deal is with zeroemail.com. And I went to instantdomainsearch.com just because that's a really good tool if you just want to check out an exact name. And I saw that it had been listed on Cedo for like $3,000. And you can see that I posted that in the comments. And I thought to myself, I wonder why he didn't buy that. It's like, even if you wanted to brand as zeroemail.ai or the number 0.email, um, you know, for, 2-3 grand or whatever, why wouldn't he have just bought the exactmatch.com? You know, I think that founders could certainly use a little help in the domain department, but I think a lot of the time they don't want to reach out. I think it's one of those things where they actually have a little bit of, I'm not sure what the right word is, but uh let's call it animosity towards like the industry of domains. While it probably would be beneficial to them if they, reached out to at least someone that can consult with them on the matter. Just tell them what their options are. Someone neutral. Not the domain owner, not anyone who's associated with the brand that they're trying to secure. Just a neutral third party. And I think that this in this particular case, he may have found a better solution. Now it sounds like it may be a little bit messy, and I feel for him, um, because I respect founders that are trying to launch cool products, and being able to get the right domain for your product is not always the easiest thing. So yeah, I mean, listen, it's tough, but I would say if you can consult with someone that understands the space, then do it.
Sounds like he's already, we know as, say, builders and domain investors and domainers, if you don't have the right name, you always feel like something's missing in your, if you didn't get the .com, you don't have your exact, the name that you think is right. You're always feeling like, geez, so I know, I'll bring up PayNow. We didn't have paynow.com, and there's a lot of different companies that are using that term. I wouldn't feel as motivated to spend money and time building something. But so this guy with zero, first of all, before I made my first movie, you know what? I had been to the movies fucking 1,000 times. I see how movies are made, meaning are shot. There's over the shoulder. There's, I'm not even going to get into it. But my point is, you've seen movies, so you know how it should look. This guy with zero email, if your company's zero email, immediately I'm thinking
Yeah.
ZEROEMAIL. Now, zero mail, I think, is the biggest, you know, um, competitor or maybe confusion there. But I still think with zero, that is when you're thinking of being spelled out. So that was all. The only time when you hear a number in a domain name, usually you feel like it's going to be spelled out. Believe it or not. Now, I
Mm.
invested a lot in names like 343, and I'd have to tell people it's 343 spelled out, because if you're just saying it's just numbers in an email, then they're thinking it's just numbers. So anyway, what I was getting about my analogy with the movie was this guy should know zero email. What's a normal person thinking that's walking down the street? They're thinking zero email,
Mm. Mhm.
ZEROEMAIL, and probably zero. So that zero that he's on with and I saw your comment, the zero dot email. Well, fuck, people are already going to confuse zero with an O. They do that plenty enough. And we've all made that mistake. You're typing in the number zero and you accidentally type in an O. So already the confusion and the problem. So one, I would take a step back and think, okay, if that's the name I'm going with for my company and my brand, and I agree with you, I like guys that are building, but they could at least, uh, be smart enough to know what is a customer, but definitely ask advice. But what is a customer thinking when they hear zero email? They're probably spelling out zero with email. And you pointed out, Josh, it was like for sale for $32.95 or something like that, and somebody picked it up. I don't know if it was Ish that picked it up for that price, and then said, because it's an okay domain name, um, I guess for that price, especially if, maybe he knows this guy's funded, and I don't like the idea of targeting, but there probably are other people that use that name. But anyway, him posting all this stuff and sort of attracting attention, and then I think I think Ish may have offered it to him. I'm trying to think, because there was so many posts on X. It's pretty fantastic, all the stuff. Josh, I was going to say, I get texts and emails, DMs from people. Um, I had it written down here. What was it? So many? Probably on our outline. Let me look at it real fast. So many domain name specialists and brokers now. People are just, I mean, so many domain name specialists out there that are on X, and I think it's, I enjoy the conversation. Like I mentioned, we like talking domain names, domain investing with other, uh, say, seasoned investors, but also the new folks, because some new folks are having some success and like to figure out, geez, you just came into this space and you're winning some poker tournaments. So what are you doing? Because this isn't easy. It is easy to do. We're going to be talking about April sales and stuff like that. Um, I haven't had any, so mine
Yeah,
are going to be real simple.
let me add
Yeah.
something as well. Let me add something to that, Todd, real quick. It's like I don't, it's not necessarily completely in us as domain investors. It's not in our benefit for a lot of cases, especially when we're acquiring names, for people to become people outside the industry to become accustomed to consulting with domain experts, because I just had an instance the other day where I was trying to buy some .ai names, and spoke with the guy on the phone. Great guy, we had great conversation. um, but while he didn't understand much about the industry, he had consulted with a broker that most of us know, and asked that broker for advice on where they would price these names. So he had a pretty good foundational understanding of where the value's at. So um, it's not always, as an industry, we don't always want people to be educated, because we're trying to go out and buy names. But it's if whether they're on the buy side, or the sell side, it's within their best interest to talk to someone that knows what they're doing. And if I have questions related to development, or other things that is not my expertise, um, I wouldn't wing it. I would go out and talk to someone that knows what they're doing. And the domain space should be no different. And I don't fully understand why it's treated differently. But yeah, that's all I'll say on that
Well,
topic.
I mean, I think people definitely don't like, if you bought that name to sell it directly to me, that's really targeting. Yeah, people get mad, and they get mad on, I never bought people's first and last names. I think I do on JulieRogers.com. I don't know how I picked that up sometime, and that's too common of a name. So, I mean, a very common of a name. And actually, Ginger Rogers, if you remember Dale Evans and or no, it was Dale Evans and Roy Rogers and Dale Evans. Sorry. So their daughter actually reached out to me. Her name's Julie Rogers, and this was like a decade ago. I should have sold it. I think she was offered 1,500. I still have the name, but people reach out to others and say on LinkedIn and say, "I have your name," and they're just not into it. People don't like, especially in a company name. They're thinking, "You just picked this up, and now you're trying to sell it to me." So they definitely get, pissed and adversarial, and then really you're setting them up for, to get it from you for fifteen
Well,
hundred bucks.
I'm very much against it too. I'll be totally honest with you. I think that there's like a spectrum here. Some people are a little bit more okay with it. Some people are completely intolerant to it. I honestly hedge on the side of close to full intolerance. I think that uh, you know investing in domains is perfectly fine, but targeting individuals or one specific company when there's not much usage beyond that, um, especially if you're privy to um, you know potentially private information. I think that crosses the line personally. And first name, last name, again, there's some debate around that, but if the first name last name is I don't know, AdamBrown.com. I'm sure there's a gazillion of those, right? And so I think that there's a fair argument that you're not targeting anyone specific. But if you're in the domain space and you see you're in the domain industry, you have interactions constantly with Joshua Schoen, and you see that joshuaschoen.com is available, and then you go out and specifically target to sell it to him for a profit. I'm not okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I got Todd Ryan in '98, but and there's several Todd Ryans around. But if somebody had that and they come to me, I'm still like, you're targeting me or these five other guys. So really, it's not definitely if there's only one of you. I know we have a lot of friends. I have some friends that have some celebrity names, and they think I just wanted to have lunch with them and give it to them. They don't want your shit. Okay, I had a tough time. Um, I didn't have a tough time giving Snoop his SnoopDogg.com. I gave it back to him. Well, he didn't even want it back in '98 because he had a bill due of a few grand to a web guy, and he's like, "Fuck it, I don't even want it. I'm not paying off. I'm not paying my this guys that build my website." So I went over to Glendale and said we were going to need that name back. Anyway, so I
Is that right? I don't know about it. I don't know about this story, dude. Is that
well,
like
then
so you are?
I directed SnoopDogg.com. Of course, anybody could see it in the way back to ABC Productions back in '98, '99, 2000, because I not only made a movie about some rapping and so on, we had a big soundtrack, and Snoop Dogg and Corrupt, who's one of the Dog Pound, anyway, a colleague, anyway, they did a song for my movie. But the point was, the celebrities at that same time, Ice-T was on mcicet.com, and I helped him. When I say assisted him, we filed a UDRP against the guy that owned icet.com, the four letter. The guy was from Iceland, and we fucking won the domain name, and we won it
Mm,
because this panelist named Don Osborne, who notoriously gives, who takes names away from domainers, did in fact did exactly what. There's the only thing I say I regret. I was glad for Ice-T, so he got icet.com because we went out there and got it for him through a UDRP. But he wasn't interested. He's like, I'm MC Ice-T. I'm like, that didn't even make sense. I mean, you're MC Ice-T, but down the road you're going to want to have icet.com, and I think there's a way we can get it. Of course, I was meaner back then. But so Snoop Dogg he didn't want his name. And I had Snoop Dogg, and then this guy, DJ from Cincinnati, WKRP, Howard Hessman. Anyway, no, this guy from Cincinnati owns SnoopDoggyDog.com and Tupac.com, the number two PAC. Well, I was like, listen, I need to direct point all these to my movie, Rapping and Rhyming. It was called Exchange. Anyway, and I had tons of traffic. It's beautiful. I had all the traffic, and then after a couple years, Snoop still didn't think it was a valuable name, and didn't no one cared about websites, and until Priority Records was sold to Capitol Records, and then Capitol Records sends me a cease and desist and says, if you don't send us this name, they're trying to get Snoop Dogg's name from it. So I ended up sending it to Calvin. That was his real name, Calvin Brodus, of course, and so since then, Snoop's always had his name, didn't really care the first decade. So there's still a lot of celebrities who don't care about having their domain name. And big case, Bruce Springsteen is on brucespringsteen.net because some fan owns brucespringsteen.com. But you still have to convince celebrities today. And Paul McCartney's sister-in-law, she was on a call. I forget her first name. Her last name is McCartney. She's married to his brother. She's here in Hollywood, and she really helps celebrities and mostly musicians with their online presence of trying to explain why it is important, and if you don't want to use it, you don't want to sell 5 T-shirts a year on your website because they don't do much business there. Most people still go to Ticketmaster. It is good to have Kevin Cronin of REO Speedwagon. It's still good to have defensively and to sell your tickets and so on. So, but anyway, owning these website names and then wanting to give it. You certainly legally can have it because Larry Fisher, the big, big Larry Fisher who sells the big names, he owns AndyWarhol.com, and that's my transition to our artist friend Bradley, who was a sculpturist. But anyway, Brad, what's happening?
I thank you, Josh and Todd. To, well, just in that particular conversation, I don't want to necessarily get in touch with at this point because I have an issue with, buying someone else's name, okay, for the purpose of thinking that they'll want it, because whether they do want it or not. What I was wanting to talk about or bring into the conversation was what Josh had mentioned earlier, is wondering kind of why, with the zero email issue, which I don't know a whole lot about, but one of the whys is, why didn't they want the name or seek the name or even inquire, with a learned intellectual property person or domainer about the name that they're buying? And I think, in my own experience, one single word that kind of describes the why: ego. The ego of these people who think they know. They don't want to hear from someone else that knows something that might be even beneficial for them. They want to, it's a control issue and they're an ego issue. And then when you combine that with, and this is just another perception that I think is out there, because I kind of have it too, that is the braggadociousy of the domain industry domainers saying, I got this for $3,000 and I sold it for $45,000. Or that concept of these people who buy these names are basically like glorified used car salesmen. You know what I mean? They brag about how much money they made off of someone who didn't know the value of the product. Does that make sense to you guys?
100%. 100%. I think you're making a great point.
And so, thank you. So in that, there's a subculture. So I mean, I kind of, there's how many people here? There's 50 people here. The individuals in this arena are such a small demographic, I mean, of, real interested in, and they love words, and they love intellectual property, and they love entrepreneurship and making money with their ideas or whatever. But I could just tell you, there's, I've seen Budweiser ads on, during football games using the slogan, um, that it's a 3-word slogan. I don't even know what it is per se, but I checked and the slogan was still available as a .com. So even advertising agencies don't know enough to, purchase the .com or to protect the catchphrase.
Well,
There's a huge lack of education, that's part of the misperception of how domaining works, and how valuable owning an internet brand that can be accessed from anywhere in the world as your own individual address. That it's bizarre how un, unknown that value is to most businesses.
I mean,
Yeah, I agree. I think there's an unhealthy friction which is between founders, developers, advertising agencies, and marketing agencies and domain investors. And my experience is that uh, one of the large reasons for that is actually uh, some of the media coverage around around domains, around domain and around domain investment. When you see a mainstream media article pick up a story regarding, a domain sale, domain values, domain investors, or anything related to domain names, uh, the person writing the article is almost always uh, misinformed, or writing something that is quite simply not true, using domain squatting in a well, in the wrong terminology, to be quite frank with you. Um, how I can't tell you how often I get these writers reach out to me and say, oh, I'm putting together an article. I was hoping that you would comment on X, Y, and Z. And I've done it in the past, and decided that I most likely won't do it in the future, because they just they're very it's a very they're trying to put together, in most cases, an argument for um, domain investors being domain squatters, and the two go hand in hand outside of our world, when we know that the two are very different.
I think your term, it's so true, Josh. And the term that you're using, unhealthy friction, is quite diplomatic, you know, and because just to back up what you said and to finish that last part of it, what they end up saying in the article or on TV is the blurb that they use when they do any news reporting about works of art. Okay, it's very seldom about the quality of the work of art, the message in the work of art, the nuance and the relevance in the work of art. It ends up like they paid $100,000 for that. You know what I mean? That's the news story. That's the cultural education that most people get. So the same thing with domains, right? It's so that they paid $100,000 for that name. You know what I mean? So it really it marginalizes not only the people in the field, but the actual culture.
Yeah, 100%. And without going too deep down the rabbit hole, I think a lot of culture and the way that we interpret things as a society comes from media coverage. And I think that over the years we've begun to see a shift where and the numbers reflect this, right? Where domains are perhaps kind of going through another um, golden age, let's say, like they kind of did in the early 2000s, where people are appreciating the value more of domains. But there's a lot of work to be done, and um, every time an article comes out, or mainstream coverage, or people just talk with their friends about domains in a manner that is simply not correct, uh, it does hurt that general perception. And it is a general perception, right? You talk to extremely smart founders and entrepreneurs that have great products, and when it comes to domains in the domain world, they're they're clueless. They couldn't be more clueless a lot of the time. Um, and Yeah, no, it's interesting. I think that this is one of the things that we have to deal with. It's we're in a this it's one of the reasons why we're in an industry that's so niche. It's one of the reasons why there's so much opportunity, right?
Yeah,
So
and
yeah.
yeah, and also it's also an industry that's so new. I mean, really, it's as brand new, like in the scheme of things with art, painting. They've had painting for thousands of years, and sculpture. And, these are 1,000-year-old medium. This medium is, 25 or 30 years old. And the other day on Todd's show, the Sven guy used the term, this this is it's still in an experimental stage. The domain industry is still in an experimental stage. So in essence, we're the kind of pioneers. If 100 years from now, if we're still even around or whatever, they're going to still be, they're going to look back at this as in the first 25 years they were doing this and that, and we don't know what's going to be unfolding, but this is still a very new and kind of experimental growing stage.
Yeah, I think also, I mean, to your point, it is new. It is an industry that's somewhat in its infancy, and I think that one of the ways to establish more, well, let's call it knowledge, establish more trust, establish the facts with a broader audience, is by people is by actually build people within this space building things, and building things that help with you know general, let's call it general education around domains, help with discovery, with um, even valuations, all these things that make it easier for the general public to understand domains. They need to be really, to be done well, they need to be built from people within the space. And I think that, historically we've had a good number of people in the space that have built good products. But that needs to continue, because it's only the people that truly understand the space that are positioned to build the best products. And I think it is difficult, right? Because people that really truly understand the space, they don't necessarily want to provide all the information or be completely transparent on their knowledge, or build tools that are going to help more people understand values of domains, because maybe it's not necessarily in their best interest, because again a lot of what we do as a market it's arbitrage on value. So uh you know the reason why domain investing can be so profitable is because so many people just don't understand value, right? So we complain about that, but at the same time it's the reason why the market is as profitable as it is. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I was trying to come off mute there. Yeah, no, you guys said a lot, and I can't wait to respond to a lot of it. And also, I wanted to say somebody named Karamo requested to speak. Now, if you have one fucking follower, excuse my language, but I'm tired of the bullshit of all these people in here. We got experts. If anybody wants to speak, I know tons of folks in here that I can't wait to hear from. It's always somebody who nobody follows, nobody's heard from, has something to say. So today I don't care. I don't want to hear, if you got, no relation to the domain space, you're dying to talk, I don't know, spend a few weeks in here, and then maybe I'll be nice. But I wanted to say a couple things. One, Josh, about like the media. And I saw Aaron thumbs up. First of all, the fucking mainstream media, that's old, and everybody likes to blame the mainstream media. It's social media. Social media, and Josh, you talk about domains being new. Social media is new, 10 years old, 15 years old, and it's taken over. And that's where most people get their news, and about the arrogance on the side of the fucking founders and the arrogance on the side of domain investors. Yeah, there's arrogance on both sides. And there's one thing, it's mostly a lot of domain investors who come off as, hey man, you don't have this name, you can't get to your dream, hot shot. I got the fucking property you need. And that really turns people off, always has. And there's still some of the big time domain investors who let you know, yeah, I have this name, and until you get it from me, if you name your company that, you're going to lose traffic. It's going to be bad for you. You're going to have to deal with me someday. And no, it's not. It's not true at all. Now, I don't mind when someone says, "Hey, this is a name that you can build you dream on." Those are great names, to have a name that's generic, that a lot of different people can build their dream on. But like I said, the arrogance on both sides. Founders are like, yeah, I think I know better, and we see all the time. You guys both brought it up, that the misinformation, the uneducation, that they don't even know what they're doing. So they're real, supposedly real smart guys. They don't know anything about naming. So maybe they are engineers over there or fucking doctors over there. Who knows? But there's a lot of issues they don't understand naming, and then. And especially they're arrogant and they are uneducated about it. So they've made some mistakes with naming their company or their brand, and then it's frustrating. And then they get over to the domain space with domain investors, and half of them, Josh, you said it, there's a wide range of feelings about stuff. Some people think, like I'm one of the ones, I do like first come, first serve, but I feel like I have some ethics, meaning I always love the domain space. First come, first serve. I'm not going to fucking target you, and I'm not going to infringe on your trademark, or I know my rights, even if it's uh, uh, someone's name. If it's something I really wanted somebody's name, and I thought I'm going to do a non-commercial or some news site about it, which I don't do, fan sites and stuff like that. I know that I do have rights really almost in any type of thing, although I don't go get people's first and last names, and I don't get company names. I've never done stuff like that. Help them try to get their own stuff. Like I said back in the day, and they didn't want to do it. I pointed to a song they gave me for a movie. But the point is, when it comes to, I love domains first come first serve. That's how it always was. And if you never had bad intentions, then that person that got BruceSpringsteen.com as a fan, they didn't know. They got it way back in the day, and then Bruce tries, then that entity tries to bully him out of it and says, "Listen, I really did just have a fan site, and I just ran a fan club, and you were aware of the fan club, and what was I doing wrong? And really nothing. That artist just got there late. You better go on the .net, but don't bully somebody out of their stuff if they did not. There are some good folks on the domain side. Like I said, there's a lot of us who try to invest in domains, say in an appropriate way. But there's still this whole group of people that are like, fuck it, I got there first. I got your name, your company name, and I'm gonna hold it hostage until you come get it. So it's like I said, there's this battle on both sides that I don't think. I don't blame the media. I blame now, like I said, media to me now is mostly social media. We hear people from the fucking president down to founders of companies, down to domain investors. We hear words come directly from their mouths. Okay, so we get you get a lot of information directly from the source, and that's maybe a benefit, in these last decade of social media. So then we have to worry about the mainstream media, which mainstream media, all they try to do is get the stories directly from the source and give it to you, but people just believe on the way you quoting that guy, you fucking tampered with the information, and we don't want. Okay, so if you don't like the mainstream media, fantastic. Social media is here for you. You can get information directly from sources, and I'm about finished saying that's why in the domain space there's so many domain investors who are just basically pricks. And what I mean is they'll get your name, then they'll try to hold you hostage for it, and that's what and some of them have a right to it, and it just gives domain investing a bad name. Getting to Josh, you brought it up, and Bruce brought it up this week about people on X posting sales and they don't give any information. Okay, well, we can't stop them from doing it. We can't stop them from posting their bullshit without the name and the sales price. But I guess I can't think of my point there. I'm sure I'll get to it. Of that we're not going to be able to stop domainers. I mean, basically the wide range of some people are just shrewd, rude, abrasive, and aggressive, and it gives domain, or like I was going to say, gives domain investors a bad name. But I guess that's their prerogative, and the domain space hasn't done any help either, because there's a lot of wild guys in the space who build companies. A lot of guys have robbed people, basically done stuff. I could name off some names. I will too. Of course, Rob Monster is one of them. But my point is, done stuff and bring it right on ourselves. And then sometimes we let the people right back in the space. They still own names, because some people are like, I'm dirty too, so I don't mind this guy, infringes on a lot of trademarks. And then it's just unbelievable. Some people get away with murder in the space, and then some people really get, say, a bad reputation. We're going to talk about a lot of, anyway, it's exciting. A lot of, not to say bad blood, but with a lot of personalities in the space. And like I said, some like to say, hey, bud, I got all this stuff here. You better come to me and get these names, or otherwise your business isn't going to succeed. And I just don't, like that attitude from domain investors at all. All right, I'll take
You know what I think would help, excuse me, is if we gave information out about how the domain name helped and benefited the company and the business, and stayed on the after effects of the purchase, and the intrinsic value of owning that asset, and how it really does build your business, and how that business evolved from the time you got the name, and talk about the other side of the posture, so to speak. There's the buy the name, it's the big intellectual property, but what value, in time and intrinsically does that have in your life and in your business, and for culturally, for the life of your, how it built your business on the good side of things, not bringing in the money part for the name, but the long-term value.
Well, Brad, I was going to jump in here. One of the problems I think we have in this industry, obviously, is education to people who are not experienced with domains, which is most of the world. And our bigger problem is that, yes, we want to educate the world, right, on the benefits of a domain. The problem is that people generally are not listening about domains until they need a domain. And that period is very short, right? From the time they wake up one morning with a business idea or something they want to do, to the time they're actually going to GoDaddy to get that domain, it's not a very large period of time. It's not a very large period of time to educate people. We might get lucky in that they'll do a little bit of research beforehand and then find podcasts like this, or whatever other educational sort of information there is online. But the other problem as well is, we have to admit, as people who own domains, I won't say domain investors or domainers, but as people who, overall arching people who own domains, there's a lot of people who act on bad faith, a lot of people who grab names, right? And it's an uphill battle for the rest of us who are trying to do things, mostly by the book, and that's the other problem, is that the book is also not necessarily very clear. There's a lot of gray zones when it comes to trademarks and personal rights when it comes to your names. Again, because it's not just UDRP stuff. There are a couple of other legal protections for people's names out there. I know Stephen Lieberman came to a room a while back and explained there's right to privacy and stuff. Like there's certain things I won't get into because I'm not a lawyer, but there's more than just what we know as casual domain investors. And that's the problem, is that the rules aren't very clear, and they also change from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So we are having an uphill battle in terms to fight for what's right and what's not right. So when a media person comes up or a journalist comes up and he sees only one set of rules and he goes based on that, and he sees only a small handful of UDRP cases, which in all honesty, most times the domain owner loses for justified reason, because they have like Coca-Cola dash, like sample or whatever it is, and so we have to fight that battle. And it's like, we only have like 3 or 4 days at the most. Sometimes it's 3 or 4 minutes between the time somebody comes up with an idea for a business and they're scrambling to buy a domain name, because they have that great dream they have that they want to start building out, and they know the first thing they need is get a website, and before getting the website they need the domain name. And so it's just, we're in this tight little field of time where it's like, we want to do everything, and it's just what we can do is very limited. I always go back to that one, if you guys have been to some of the rooms in the past, there's one video on YouTube from Frank Schilling like 10 years ago. It's a 2-minute video, but it's like, he just goes on. It's like all these great, awesome, inspiring background music. And he just goes on for 2 minutes about the power of a good domain name. And like, all we need is VeriSign to take that, put it on TV for like, a couple of months and whatever it is, and blitz the thing. And hey, it's going to be the first step, and it's just that what we can get to people in terms of information, it's very limited.
Well, that's very well said. And just bringing in the concept of time alone actually compresses the degree of difficulty. You know what I mean? Because then that limits the contemplation or the deep thinking about what's the best, name to use, and then to do some research. And then but to comment about that, what I was thinking of is how the registrars with all these new extensions, they kind of don't want people to think about getting a .com because all of us or already got the best ones or whatever. So they have to, expand their market by using the other extensions. So they're kind of pushing, yeah, any extension will work. And it's true, conceptually, any extension will work. But, it's very, very
But
difficult.
yeah, but there's two things on that point. First one being like their profit margin on pretty much anything that's not a .com is higher, right? And then also we need to recognize that profit margin, especially in .coms, is so small and slim that they're not really making much money on it unless the people are getting hosting and emails and all that stuff, right? That's what we always go back to GoDaddy. That's the business model. We always say, well, how come GoDaddy doesn't care about domainers and blah blah blah? I mean, realistically, yes, they make money from domains. You can't ignore that. But their gravy money, the higher profit margin, comes from hosting and emails and all that stuff. So for them, they want the buyer to buy a domain, and whatever it is, like the easiest thing for them. Yeah, they're happy if they sell a $3,000 domain that belongs to us, but it's not their primary thing. They only make, depending on what commission they're paying out. They're making about $500 on the average $3,000 sale, and it sounds like a lot, $500, and it does add up. But the markup they're going to get over 10 years off of a whatever it is half of that, and then the amount they're going to get from hosting and email is like 10x that, even more sometimes. So we have to realize that we're kind of not in the best position here. We have to really try to figure out how to make ourselves more visible and educate people. Like, I mean, was it Chris Zucker? He has his 7 sort of reasons or 7 elements of a domain. I forget what it is, but email security, control your brand, control. The 7 points is there, and those are the reasons we want to be visible to the buyers, right? But again, where do we put that information? Because again, we're not people who are buying domains. Usually, they're not thinking about it like 5 years ahead of time. And certainly they're not researching it 5 years ahead of time. They might check to see the domains available, but they're not going to go on the rabbit hole to see, oh, well, why do I need this and why do I need that? It's like, we really are limited in what we can do. Like most of my sales, it's just the power of the domain. Like there's no sales pitch through Aftermarket syndication. Like people will say, oh, well, you got to inform people. Like all this AI stuff, all these things. Yeah, it's great to have all this, AI sort of sales pitch and whatever it is. But the reality is for me, like 90% of my domains, the person never sees that. It's what comes in their head, right? And that's why like domains are great as a resale thing, because we catch these people when they have their dream. That's why I almost don't like building out websites. Some people do, but for me, I don't like putting websites out on domains that I want to sell, because it stifles the vision of what can be there. If somebody sees it, they go, oh, the domain has to be this, because they see that there, as opposed to, oh, somebody's coming with their dream. Like to me, I don't want anything there, because I want them to come to buy my domain with that dream, right? There's nothing more valuable than someone's like dream to build a business and to be rich because they have their website and their presence and all that stuff. And so, and that's what I try to do. I try to get domains that I think will match somebody's dream or somebody's existing business or whatever it is. As I'm rambling, I'll let you guys continue.
Thanks, Eric. I want to say we're going to have a great conversation today. First of all, I want to say thanks to everyone being here. We're going to do this every Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, DNX.show if you want to learn more. I did send a message. I know, Josh, you talked with Drew Rosner quite a bit. I said, hey, now that he's back, he's like, I'd love to join you guys and come in there, because and maybe, next week we may have Swetha and Shane be guests. Seems like it may happen. So anybody want to, because we're going to touch on that too. Swetha off X, she's back. And of course, from XYZ fame. So that may be next week. It looks like it, no matter, we have a lot of content. And then of course, I'll still invite Drew next week. If Swetha's going to be here, I'm sure he'll have some questions for her too. But when you talk about Chris Zeicher, okay, Chris, it's great. He's definitely helping to educate. And like you say, and I know this is exactly how you are, Arif. I'm sure Josh is similar, and that is somebody comes to you with their dream, they're needing to buy a domain name. It's like them coming into your store. Thanks for coming. I know this is a serious. You're buying a fucking diamond. You're buying your partner an engagement ring. Come on in. We know you have a lot of options. We really appreciate you coming here. And I know Chris Zeicher. He might have exactly their exact match. You guys make their exact match. Still treats them respectfully and professionally. Not like some of these guys who sing and dance for me before I fucking even respond. Okay, so of course that turns people off. I mean, that would turn me. I would think to somebody, but you may have, because I'm thinking, listen, it's a tool I can use. If I come and you're like, hey, listen, you need my shit, or you're never going to be successful. I'm thinking, but that already left the barn. I already was, and I'll remember you as a punk anyway. The point is, the pros are very respectful and appreciative when someone comes and says, listen, I am interested in one of your names. You don't immediately go, yeah, I thought you were, like you come into, Burlington Coat Factory. Yeah, we knew you needed this coat. We were sitting here waiting for you to come in. Yeah, so, treat you bad. It's just, there's a lot of people in the domain space who, aren't pros when it comes to being salespeople, and it's their prerogative. Okay, it's their prerogative to do all this, but it doesn't help out the space at all, and that's why I do. When I brought up Swetha, maybe she'll be here next week. A lot of people in the space don't believe, and just to bring up Mike Mann. So Mike, he believes there's all sorts of bullshit going on, and I always thought with Swetha, maybe a real person, there's probably, and I believe a lot of the sales, I believe a lot, because there's a lot of other .xyz sales, but there's something more to the story, and I'm interested, what is more to the story? Do I lose sleep at night? I could give a shit. I've never invested in .xyz, but I bring up Mike Mann because at least I will say this, he has domain market, and he prices names, and he does sell names, and he doesn't, he's very, I think, respectful to buyers of names. He doesn't, the price may be high on some, he's got low prices on others. So what I mean is very reasonable. Not out there telling somebody, if you don't buy from me, get lost. I don't believe so. At least I do like that we have professionals in here. I don't mind that they have differences of opinions, and a lot of them have experience about. Anyway, knowing different people. I know plenty of folks in here who run some companies. I'm not in this room, but I mean in the domain space, who run companies now, and they don't have great reputations from the past. Well, I may not be into them, and I may think, listen, man, I would never do business with you, and I don't even, care for you at all, and I want you out of my way when I see you. But the point is, so there's a lot of history amongst people, and that's where I, give them leeway. You feel a certain way about somebody, but definitely, I think, recently, specifically with the Swetha thing, not just from one or two people, over the last 5 years, it's really, I think that some of the hatred for Nagari at the registry has, definitely spilled over to Swetha, and I guess we'll see now she's, back on X. She had a sale, recess.xyz. I think it's funny because, yeah, it's like, yeah, I'm back from recess, guys. Who wants to play kickball? Anyway, a lot of her success. I remember some of the posts on Name Pros way back in the day when, investing in XYZ. So that's why I always thought seemed real enough for me. I just didn't know if is she getting any special renewal rates from XYZ. So then it makes it easier to have big portfolios of 20, 30,000 names when you're not paying, you got premiums, but yet you're not paying premium renewals. I really hope that she's going to be on here next week. Any more word about that, Josh? And what's your thoughts on the controversies in our space?
There's plenty of controversies in our space, and I could I could give my opinion for hours on end on that, but I'll refrain. I spoke to I was texting with Shane this morning, and he asked if him and Swetha could jump on our space, and if they could be guests and talk it through, and I said absolutely. So if he wants to do that and he doesn't want to do his own space, then he knows he's welcome. And if not, that's fine as well. Like you said, we've got plenty of things to talk about, plenty of positive things, and I hope that all I'll say on that topic is that I hope it's a positive outcome. I I think I've made my feelings known on X. I think that Swetha is an inspirational domain investor. I think that on a different point, but somewhat related. I think that some of the most vocal people in our space that are also some of the most well respected have a pretty big say on what people believe and how they interact with each other, and these things should be considered, and you should also you should make sure you think about how these things may affect people. And if I'm quite honest with you, I think Swetha has dealt with it really, really well. I would have taken things probably worse than her, because she's getting a lot of people that are well respected in the space question her morals or ethics, and even just her authenticity, which is harsh when someone who's a minority in the space, as not just someone she's not American, but she's also a woman, and she's also not invested in .com, she's invested in .xyz, and she's found a niche and she's done well. And there's only, in my opinion, good for her. I see no reason not to believe her. Some of the most trusted people in the space, name bio, Michael Sumner, have gone out of their way to verify her sales and even logged into her Afternic account. I have some pretty close friends that speak with Swetha, there's not a shadow of a doubt in my mind that she, she's completely authentic. And that's honestly all I really want to say. I don't want to get involved in the matter too much, other than to say that she's completely welcome in the industry. I'm very thankful for the fact that she reports her sales, because I probably wouldn't have invested in .xyz's had she not. I probably would have, but she certainly helped. And I've had some success selling .xyz names, and it doesn't surprise me that she continues to have success doing it. And I've got friends that have had way more success than me selling .xyz names. And that's all I'll say. I'm not saying go out and buy lots of .xyz. That's not what my plan is. I'm personally focused more on .coms. Listen, you talked a little bit about people not sharing sales or blanking out sales. I think that at the end of the day, if you're sharing stuff without the domain, without the price, and just wanting to give yourself a pat on the back, it's fine by me. You share whatever you want. It's a free country. Do what you want. But I'm not going to be congratulating you on selling something for some price at some point. But if you do go out of your way to share with other people in the community, then I have a lot of respect for that, and I respect people that do it. And Sweth is one of those people.
That's I want to also just fully 100% support and agree with what Josh just said. It's important because there's been a mess in this industry. I don't know what the recent stuff is, but I know in the past it's gotten pretty bad. And the one thing I'd say is that it's really okay and actually important in our industry to be skeptical, right? There's so many people who don't say the truth, and you can't. There's not a single sale you could really trust, right? People can make up, but you could monkey around with the HTML to make, the Afternic thank you message look fake and whatever it is. Like, there's so many things people can do. Like, really, you shouldn't trust any one specific data point. But, oftentimes when you have people like, Josh, like you and other Sherpas and whatever it is who share stuff over and over again, at a certain point, you develop a trust. And like, I trust what you say. I trust what other Sherpas say, because there's been a long, history of backing up and being verified things. But at the same time, it's like, be skeptical, but there's also a difference between being skeptical and asking legit questions and, chasing people down rabbit holes and witch hunts and whatever it is. I think, in a specific case with Swetha, it needs to be said that she's done a lot to be transparent and done more than most people have, made her accounts visible to certain people known in this industry. And that's like, we can't ask for anything more than that. That's more transparent than most other people. I'm like you, Josh. I never would have, back in the days, XYZs was almost a joke. It was all spam and whatever it is. And I think to some degree, luck or not luck, whatever you want to call it, when the crypto people kind of latched on to XYZ, it gave it, a lot of wind beneath its sails, and good for them, right? You could call it luck to some degree, right? There's many people who venture into specific niches within the domain industry, similar to, like, you could say, okay, XYZ or other extensions or other subtypes of domains and whatever it is, who lose their shirt because they never pay off. Those sectors never become hot trends and whatever it is. And, that's how this business works. Sometimes it's educated guesses. Sometimes it's just dumb luck. That's why, Josh, I always tell people to follow you, because you do the research. You go to LinkedIn, you do all this stuff. That's why I appreciate it. It's like, sometimes getting informed really helps to eliminate the chance. But there's always chance in this industry. There's always luck. But again, just getting back to what you said about Swetha, I'm glad you said it. I fully 100% support what you said. And it needs to be said, because, again, there's a difference between being skeptical and really being aggressively going down witch hunts and whatever it is. And it's just, our industry, there's nothing that can be proven 100%. Anything that you see on Twitter or whatever it is, take it with a grain of salt and, move on. Build your education based on many, many different people and many different ways of doing it. And then, over time, hopefully you'll build yourself up to a point where you can be a successful domainer.
Well, you're right. First of all, you're right about the skepticalness, and it's a bit different than the vitriol, right, that has come out for Swetha. There's plenty of new people in this space that I hear. In the last couple months, I hear guys saying they've sold this many in a week. Just a bunch of bullshitters who deserve to be like thrown out of the bar. Basically, they're fakers. With regards to Swetha, what most interests me about her is I want to ask the questions like I like to ask, and we got a lot of information from Josh the last couple months, and that is, how much have you spent on this portfolio building this stuff over? I like over the lifetime. And there was a guy, Josh, on on X this last week. He has a great portfolio. I remember it was Global something. I can't remember who it is, but he posted his portfolio link, and I said, geez, great portfolio. Why did you have bhai.com priced at $2.5 million? The guy was nice. He answered me back and said, that means buddy or something in India. Well, because I got some 4-letter that end in AI, and I was like, is it because of that? Just because a 4-letter ending in AI, you think it's worth that much? But no, this was a word. But the gentleman said he'd spent a lot of money building this great portfolio. Well, that's what I'd like to know about the investors that I see that are really selling stuff. And I appreciate Andrew Alleman talking about his portfolio of 2,700 names this past week. I like to know, right, how much have you spent on your names? Because I know how much I have, and I'll say it again. I've spent 1.3 million total. I've got back about 2.5 million. When you've been doing it as long as me, that's not very much. Okay, that's a lot of guys would think, yeah, why don't you fold up and go home? The point is, it is important to, to me, it's like the numbers. That's why I love a domain investor. Then we can tell a lot about how they answer the questions, even if they don't want to answer some of the questions. Like a lot of guys, well, we're going to talk about April sales, but I got to say, when I listened to Andrew Alleman at dnw.com, go to his website, he said he has 2,700 total domain names. I won't give you all the info because I want you to listen to what he said. It's real short, 10 minutes. He talked about his Q1 sales in 2025, and he had 9 sales as compared to 11 last year. And his, what I like to know more is, okay, about all the money that was spent total, building a portfolio of 2,700 names. And then I know when he asks Mark and talks about it himself and with Logan, they always talk about a median price. I don't give a fuck about a median price. I want to know the average price so I can do the math and figure out what kind of numbers somebody really did. But listen, people don't need to share all their numbers. I will say, some guys, I wouldn't share a lot of my financials. That's nobody's business. A lot of my stuff, I'm not going to share everything. Domain space, that's why I've always felt comfortable, because I felt like I got other crap going on. So my domain stuff is only It doesn't tell the whole picture of my life, but it does give, I'm able and wanting to say, here's how much I've totally spent. Here's how much I've totally, retrieved back from it. So here's roughly where I'm at with regards to making money. Divide that over 20 years. Yeah, 50, 60 grand over a year. Because several of the beginning years didn't make any. The biggest years only making, and I say only, 400,000 or 500,000, because we know guys that do sell names for that amount. And many times it's brokers and it's not even their own stuff. But my point is, if Swetha does come on here, believe it, got tons of questions about domain investing. And then you can see really, I guess, then you can see who's for real and who's full of shit. And I don't expect her to be full of shit at all. Meaning, okay, talk about when did the sales start picking up for .xyz. And I will say, she has had an effect, an influence on that particular extension. And then, of course, there's interesting history too. Has she ever winked at Daniel Nagari? I mean, does she know the guy? What's the relationship? Because you really have put part of the registry on your back. I mean, by help promoting it, and what is the relationship there? But yeah, the anger and hatred towards somebody, I think, man, just sort of it's really disgusting a little bit. But anyway, I gotta say I do like the domain space. People are just they're crazy in here. Then we get to the meetings and everybody's nice as can be. I wonder how Miami's going to be, because all these South Florida domainers. We got the Domain King and we got the King Domain. We got Mike Mann and we got Rick Schwartz. Surely they're going to show up, aren't they? I know Mike is. I was going to do a panel with Mike, and I'd like to ask, hey, so what's really going on with these names, and then get right to the numbers. He's willing to share it, and that's really what's important. And then, of course, you got to take also the personality. The people, they are who they are, and they're going to say. So I like the freedom of that. But I will say, let's all face the truth, and that is, some of the guys that have been doing it 20 years. I'm not saying I don't cut them any slack by any means, because some of them are just, it doesn't matter. You were a dick 20 years ago, you're a dick today. I mean, that's just how it goes down. But I do want to listen to where they got to their feelings more than a lot of these. We have a lot of new people in the space, been around for a year or two, and they, basically, I do respect some of the years and the investment put into this space. So I feel like, yeah, you do have a say, but I don't, can't tell everybody to be nice. Hey, well, Josh, about April. Okay, so I had no sales in April. I don't know. I mean, it's been a while. I've had a month probably without sales, but it's been a long time. And now I'm only at about 1,200 names. Um, to not have a sale, bums me out. I got several in negotiation right now on my Aftermarket control panel. I say several, that's two. But how was your April? What happened for you?
Hey, yeah. So April was from my portfolio was slower as well, slower than the previous 3 months, no doubt about it. Um, you know, I had a decent chunk of sales. Sold in April. I sold agilefinancialsolutions.com for 4 grand, growthinsiders.com for almost 5 grand, americanroofingservices.com for 1100, 2029.org for 2700. And then yesterday, the last day of the month, I sold revoltfinancial.com for $4,888, and that was the one that I posted was under transfer lock because I just registered it 30 days ago. But I actually just got a nice email from Afternic saying that they've accepted a push at the registrar. So I just pushed it to them, and they've accepted it, and now they've got it. So I should be getting paid out on that one, which is nice, because normally you have to wait the 60 days. But I think that Afternic are making some changes. That they've made some adjustments to the TA. I will say that things have been slow recently, but I think that's because of the adjustments that they're making. And this transaction, the activities has been pretty smooth, and getting a push to Dynadot without me requesting it is a positive sign. So, I think that while a lot of people like to complain, and including myself, on some of the things, and deservedly so, a lot of the time, I'll say, I think that they are. I think After Nick and GoDaddy are certainly progressing in the right direction.
I want to let everybody know we're going to 11:55 a.m. Pacific time. That's 2:55. So each week we're going to go like 90 minutes to 120 minutes. Um, and it's already going by fast today. There's a couple things. If you check out our outline, DNX.show, we've touched on a lot of the stuff, but I wanted to talk just about that. Josh said he registered a name, and Revolt Financial. I mean, that was available.com, huh? I mean, it might have been registered before, but and dropped. But
It was registered before. It dropped within the last 365 days. And then I re-registered it, bulk registration with a bunch of others. Dynadot's been doing these $6.99 registrations for the last couple months. And I think I told you, or I told everyone who's tuned in the last couple shows, that I've been registering a bunch of names at Dynadot, and this was one of them. So yeah, sold it for $4,888. Basically, that sale paid for, I think, all of my registrations plus some. Yeah, pretty happy with that. And also happy with the fact that I didn't have to wait the 60 days to get it transferred. So good times.
well, that was one of our points on the outline. Is there anything to register?
Congratulations, Josh. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Well, Josh, so other than so there are some .coms that are available to register, and I always say that people. I hate to bring Braden up on this point, but I think it's like, is somebody, if it's available to register, it's probably been available for the last 20 years. Why now do you think it's worth something? It's not true, because like you said, many times they drop, they pass through, as Arif says, somebody didn't find the gold, and it passes all the way through, it's deleted, and then available for registration. And so it may have been registered for 5 years or 10 years, and now you get it. So you do look at .com, some registrations there. What along with .com, what other extensions do you maybe or your highlights, or you really look at for registration? Do you think there's some good stuff available, and the extension is worth it?
Yeah, I've registered a lot of names and a lot of different extensions. The last couple months, I've been focused on .com registrations, but I've registered .ai's, and I think we talked about new image.ai and main character.ai being some recent registrations that were then sold. I sold those for 10 grand each, and they were quick turnarounds as well. Registered I registered innercircle.gg within the last few months, and turned around and sold that one for 5 grand. So this isn't limited to a single extension. I think I registered hikari.xyz, and then sold it a couple months later for 5 grand. I'm not worried too much about the TLD, as long as it makes sense with the SLD, and it's a TLD that has some sort of demand, and these TLDs do have demand. Obviously, what I look for in a .com is different to what I look for in a .gg, and that's different to what I look for in a .xyz, and that's different again to what I might look for in a .ai. But these are the little nuances of domaining, which are important, right? Yeah, I mean, listen, like you said, lots of names drop daily. Some of them may have been registered for a long time before that. Some of them may have been registered for only a year before that. Again, that doesn't necessarily determine value, but these are data points that you should be looking at, no doubt. Revoltfinancial.com was not registered in any other extensions when I registered it. A lot of people, when they're going to register names, will want to see that it's registered maybe in other extensions. But that's a very common metric for people to look at. So it's also an easy thing for people to look at. So what I would suggest is try to find other metrics that aren't as easy to see, because that's how you can sometimes discover some diamonds in the rough. And like, let's be very clear as well. The fact that domain sold 30 days after I registered it is extremely lucky. Let's say that there was maybe a 1% chance of that happening. Probably less, probably more like a 0.1% chance of that happening. But
Yeah.
this is a when you're registering .com domain names, yes, you need to look for quality, and that comes in a lot of different forms. But it's also a numbers game. I could would I have picked that name as the one that would sell? Probably not. As if I registered 1,000, I probably would have picked 10, 20 other names that I thought might have been better. So there's some luck involved as well, right?
So luck is a big deal, and congratulations on that. My question, Josh, is could you maybe go into it just in your own intuitive way? Why did you choose Revolt Financial? Was there something that stood out, or were you conscious of the state of the industry, or how did you come up with that?
Yeah. So again, I'll be very clear that when I'm talking about these things, these are typically I hope that people understand that when I'm revealing what I'm revealing, I'm doing so because I want to be helpful, and I'm not trying to like toot my own horn here, but most people, when they identify ways to extract value, they're not going to tell you. For me, one of the things that I do is I look at if that keyword, and in this case it's revolt, is being used, or is registered, or has history with within the financial space, because obviously the suffix that I'm using here is financial. But let's have a look at revoltcapital.com. That's taken, it's not for sale. Let's have a look at revoltfinance.com. That's taken, and let's see here. It's not for sale. I think it's developed. It's developed. Let's do revoltfund.com. That's a pretty typical. So I'm looking at revoltfund.com. That is taken. It's also taken in .org. So right in the get-go, we can see that alternative options for that as a brand, for Revolt as a brand within the financial arena, right? Because we look at capital, fund, and finance as a suffix, are taken, and there's usage there. So automatically, it's pretty well established that there's usage in both commerce and culture for the keyword revolt in the financial sector. So that's why I registered it.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate sharing that thinking process. And I'm just, with respect to the word revolt, I would like to bring up, today is May 1st, May Day, and revolt, there is a nationwide strike for citizens in this country who are upset about what's going on with the administration. So that word revolt is timely.
Hey, Josh, it is awesome that you're identifying names and sharing them, and you've been doing it on X. And I know when I first saw it, I thought, is the guy gonna go get coffee? He's taking he's getting his kid some cereal, but yet he's took me a while to catch on. But
Yeah,
it is cool what you're doing. Explain it.
I'm trying. I'm in the most. It's fun. It's fun for me. It's fun. I enjoy you know providing some sort of value to people that are seeking it. I think that you're not gonna see a situation too often where someone is identifying a name and saying, "If you don't buy it, I will." They're just gonna buy it themselves, because it's actually quite hard for me. Like if I go through and I'm browsing for a name and I say, "Okay, I want this name," um, it means that I actually do want to buy the name. So why would I offer it to anyone else? But the only way to actually like justify me putting it out there and saying, I like this name, you should buy it or you should consider buying it is by me actually buying it if you don't buy it. So I've got to want to buy it. So it's fun. It's an interesting exercise. I enjoy interacting with people. I enjoy the discussions. On the topic of revolt as well. It's not just in the financial industry either, right? If you go to Crunchbase and you type in revolt, you see so many results for companies that are using the brand just revolt. It's a great brand, and you can apply these same principles to other domains that you find. So I'll be honest with you. These things are the absolute key to becoming successful as a domain investor. And a lot of people, you won't be told this. Like, people don't talk about it. You have to be able to work it out for yourself, and that is not easy. It takes a lot of time. I drop domains all the time, by the way. I'm still dropping domains today. I look at some of the domains that I was buying even 2-3 years ago, when I I was having success with domains at that point, and I say to myself, wow, those are not the right domains to buy. And they may look good, right? They may look good. And oftentimes they do look good. And sometimes I look at those domains and I go, oh yeah, that would be really cool if I could name my company that. But nobody's ever done it. Nobody's ever named their company that. And those kind of names don't sell that well. But if you can be meticulous about the data and justify the way that I justified buying Revolt Financial and explaining to you why I bought it. If you can justify and show usage, and make a case for somebody naming their company, their brand, that domain, then you're on the right track. But often, like I said, oftentimes when people get into domain investing, they're just thinking about, oh, like, is this applicable to a brand, or do they do this service, or is it, and that's not the right way to think about things, because the only way that you'll sell these names for a good number, in most cases, not all the time, but in most cases, a higher percentage of the time, and we're domain investors, so we've got to think about the percentages, is if a company wants to name themselves like that brand, right? And it's easy. It's easier said than done. And yeah, I don't know if I'll continue harping on about this forever, but I like to put some content out there. I like to help out if I can.
Josh, I got to
Well,
say, hold on there. If I know you want to talk, and I certainly will throw it to you, but I wanted to say to Josh, that's why it is a pleasure to do this with you, because you really bring value, and it's like bring value. I learned from you, and that's why I'm like, geez, you guys. Of course, they're already following Josh, but he's putting his money where his mouth is too. And I wanted to say quickly, if you haven't. I was talking about people being transparent about what they do. Rick Schwartz posts on X. A lot of you are blocked. I can see a lot of you down there. Yeah, you're blocked. You're blocked. You're an asshole. You're blocked. But he did let, I guess, over Mike Birkin's over, it's not Mike that runs it anymore, but go to thedomains.com and you'll see what Rick has bought since 2022. Some really interesting stuff there. I can't believe that doesn't seem right to me. I see Akron, Akron, like Akron, Ohio, for $343. That's probably the best purchase I saw that he made, in my opinion. He did get Freak Off for $52.95. Maybe he can sell that to Diddy when he gets out. But the point is, the transparency that Rick is providing, that means, that's like, here's everything I bought over the last few years and here's the prices I paid, but you don't get any more transparent than that. So I really shout out, that was the best Rick post I've ever seen in my, and because that's what I want to see. I don't care about all the other stuff. What was it you bought? Why was it? Not all those are those dream names that you're going to get 5 million for, but thanks for sharing, Rick. So that's at thedomains.com. And then, of course, DN Journal posted a bunch of sales, and we'll talk about it in just a second. Then I want to ask Josh about another post that he made. But Arif, floor is yours.
Yeah, I was going to jump in, and just because what's been said in the last 15 minutes for people who are new to this industry is so important, because look at everything that Josh did to think about and his thought process behind getting that one domain. But the one thing that also you really need to remember is what he said before, is that, yeah, there's probably a 1% chance or even 0.1%, because that's probably, it falls in the bucket of a domain that has maybe a little bit more, but let's say for conversational purposes, about a 1% sell-through rate, right? Which means that in the first month, that chance of selling is a 12th of that. So approximately 0.1%. And it's a numbers game. But the danger that often people have when they get like general information is, like, especially when I'm talking to, I say, look, I have a 1% sell-through rate in my portfolio. And for me, that's totally fine, because I'm nicely profitable with my business. I do this, not full-time at all. And it's great for me, right? But you have to realize that, man, most of you down below, if you're thinking, 1%, it's easy to get, 100 domains, I'm going to sell one a year. It's no problem. But it's not. You have to put all that thought process. Hopefully you have some previous marketing knowledge. You have knowledge of the industry of the specific domain you're buying, all those things together to realize, is there a buyer for this domain, right? Is there somebody who's going to use this as their brand or as a marketing tool or whatever it is? Somebody who's prepared to not just like, okay, I'm going to buy it because it's like $10 on GoDaddy, whatever it is. No, they're prepared to spend like, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 for it, and more if you're paying more for the domain. But I mean, you need to, sell your domains for at least $2,000. You have a 1% sell-through rate to be, profitable a little bit long-term and put some money in your pocket after you consider your time and the commissions and all these other little things that you have, right? Your expenses. And so, it's really, really, really important that for each domain you buy, you ask yourself, who is the buyer, right? And there has to be somebody. You can't be like some made up thought process. And that's the danger most of us have, because the beauty of domains is that there's these magical tools to, bring yourself into a business, and, it's a virtual address and whatever it is. And we have often, as when we're starting this business, this, I guess, the danger of starting to imagine what these domains could be used for. And that's the danger, right? Because if your imagination is too wild and you're imagining, it could be used for this and that, but the this and that don't actually exist in the real world as actual potential buyers, then you're making a mistake, and it's like, you'll never get it right 100% of the time. Like for me, it's not, but it is a lot of luck, and yeah, Josh hit that one. But, as he's trying to explain, when he says the 1%, is like, there's also 99 similar ones that he didn't sell, right? But they're sellable, right? That's the thing, is that it's luck which ones come to you. But once you have volume and you've really, checked every single one of your domains to make sure to meet a certain threshold, that's when you could be a profitable domainer at it. But you have to make sure you don't make the mistake of buying domains that are like those imaginary buyers that don't truly exist, that you're trying to force into, the square peg into a round hole, right? No, if there's no real buyer out there for that domain today, unless you're just, speculating on 3% of your portfolio for future tech, whatever it is. But if there's no buyer for your domain today, you can't picture who that person is existing today, then don't get that domain. Because it's
right. Can I add to that real quick? Because I think you touched on a really good point, and it's like, most people that get into the domain space, they think they need to have like they need to have creativity, they need to have a great imagination, right? They need to, and especially if they've like entered through like the brandable space, so like going like selling names on Brand Bucket or Atom. And what's interesting is, I sat down with Stan at the ICA, and he was recently a guest on Todd's podcast, and they I heard them talking about naming and creativity and that kind of thing. And Sten he's massive on creativity, and and I'm the complete opposite, which is funny because Sten is a very, very successful domain investor, got a great portfolio on Atom, but you've got to understand like what you're trying to do, right? Where you're trying to position yourself as an investor. And if you're trying to get all your names on Atom or Brand Bucket and put a nice logo on them and appeal to a buyer that doesn't know what they want and wants something creative, then maybe those kind of hand registrations are a good idea for you. But I think that, well, I know for sure that if you're not using these brandable marketplaces like Atom or Brand Bucket, you need to need to take a completely different approach, because the creativity and imagination side of things and going with your gut, that is your biggest enemy to smart investing. And this is something, again, it's taken me so long to fully like grasp this concept that as soon as my gut starts getting involved, or what I think is a good brand, or like how I imagine a brand it should be used, once that starts to get involved, and that once that side of me starts to make buying decisions, it's no good. It's no bueno.
Josh,
You have to make that disconnect. Yeah, I hear you. 100%, I agree.
Yeah, I gotta say, I learned that
you need to be making buying decisions based on data, based on what other companies are doing, what other buyers are doing, what the people out there that buy your names are doing, not what you think that they could do or should do.
Yeah.
I wish I would have heard this 20 years ago, Josh.
It's true.
I wish I
mean,
would
the
have
thing
heard it
that
10 years ago.
imagination is hurtful. Josh,
And I was gonna say there is a distinction between like the brandables and like the again the 1% that we Josh and I kind of more go into, and he ventures into higher grade domains as well, which has a higher sell-through rate. But just for sake of conversation, like a good analysis or a good similar thing to compare to that I often use is jewelry, right? So you have a piece of jewelry, right? And generally, if you want to sell it through the main sales way for domains is Aftermarket syndication through GoDaddy, the search, and whatever it is. And you need to make sure that your piece of jewelry, right, is something that people already want. However, when it comes to the brandables, that's a little bit of the exception where some people can be a little bit creative, but be careful because commissions are higher and sell-through rates are much lower. But like you have an entity or a company like Atom or formerly Squad Help, but like they are basically paying people to come into their door. So they have like say a jewelry shop on New York. Let's say Fifth Avenue, whatever the trendiest place in New York. They're paying a lot of money for that real estate space for people to come in, and those people come in, and you might have a unique piece of jewelry that nobody ever thought of. And because they're coming into that store and they put it right in front of their shop, well, somebody will see that and go, oh, that's interesting, right? And that's how some brandables get sold at Brand Bucket, or Brand Bucket, yeah, and Atom. But you need to realize that those are the exceptions, right? Those are not a large sell-through rate for those domains, but they happen, right? And if you're really good at what you're doing, there are some people who are successful at them, but you just got to be careful that those domains don't match the volume of domains that sell through the Aftermarket syndication and CEDO syndication and the GoDaddy search and whatever it is, and all those other ways aside from the brandable places. Basically, you have no way of showing your product. The people are searching, so they're finding you, right? If you have something unique and creative, there's no way for you to pitch that to somebody who's searching through the GoDaddy search bar or the Dynadot search bar or whatever it is. So you need to, again, go back and follow what Josh said. Figure out, are there buyers for this? And there's different ways of doing that. Like for me, it's just I often just go to Google, right? And Google, is there is this search term being used, or is this type of name, is it kind of popular? Does it come close to what other companies are using? And Josh, that's why I always say listen to Josh, because he goes a level further. He checks on LinkedIn, he checks all these other places, and go back to listen to his podcast. He's pretty open with the places he checks. And it's so important because, we always talk about 1% sell-through rate, and it sounds so easy, but it's not. I know so many people who've tried to do this and failed. Like year after year, you see people go to name pros. These people come in, they join, they get all excited. Oh, this is going to be a good idea for this and good idea for that. And it's like, you just cringe because yes, it's a creative name. And yes, if I started a business and I saw that domain name, I might get that one, right? Sure, but I never would have thought of it. And if I never would have thought of it, I never would have found that domain. And that's the real disconnection that a lot of people have.
Hey, everyone, we're going to be here for 15 more minutes. If you have a question or comment, come on, raise your hand, or just be here next week. But there's a few things I still wanted to talk with Josh about, and that's, Josh, so first of all, a DN Journal, Ron, he always posted these sales, and I remember 20 years ago, I would be looking, thinking, man, that's, it just motivated me to be a domain investor, basically to continue to do it, because you're like, I know this guy, he's posting real sales. He verifies them. So if this shit's selling, a lot of this stuff, I know I'm going to be able to get some stuff in the mix. But anyway, so C1.ai sold for $65K. You said that you had picked up some C1 domain names because of some research you had done. Tell us a little bit about that. Why did you buy some C1 or domain names with the number and letter, the letter number C1 in them?
That's funny. Did C1.ai is that what was that in a recent report?
Yeah, this was this past report on DN Journal, and then I got some others I wanted to tell you about that were on there. But yeah, so you liked C1. You were explaining why you were looking at names with those letter number combination.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I posted about those names the other day, and my then Revolt Financial obviously just sold, and the principles are very, very similar, right? I was going through the drop lists. I saw C1. I think it was it Ventures or C1 Finance. I think I saw. And my first instinct is to say, okay, I know that finance, there's plenty of companies that use finance.com, so much so that there's a new GTLD.finance, right? That's a good hint, by the way. If you're ever wondering if companies use like media.com or healthcare.com or ventures.com, a good indication would be check if there's a new GTLD on it. And if there is, you're probably, someone's already done the research for you. So finance.com, I saw C1 Finance, and the first thing that I'm going to do in this instance is say, okay, is C1 a brand that companies use? The best easy way to do that is Crunchbase or LinkedIn. If you want to get more results, probably elect for LinkedIn, and you can just type in C1 to LinkedIn, look at the companies, and I see 491 results. I see lots of companies called C1. C1 Global, lots of companies just called C1, C1 Chemicals, C1 Bank, C1 Connections, C1 Certification, etc., etc. Like there are a lot. C1 Technologies, and then in that post on X, I also break down because the name that I'm looking at registering is C1 Finance. That's the one that I've seen that's available, right? There are lots of other suffixes that are used within the financial arena, financial being one of them, bank being another. C1 Bank, you want to check that. C1 Capital, you want to check that. C1 Fund, you want to check that. And if they're all taken, right, some of them might even be in use. You know, that's a good indication that you're onto something of value. And yeah, I mean that's essentially what I break down in that post. You know, and people kind of commented on the post. Some people even like sent me messages and said, "Well, what does C1 mean? What is the How is C1 and finance related in any way?" And I don't know. The answer is I don't care. This is not, you know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what it means to me. It only matters what it means to someone else. And whether or not there is historical data that I can find that suggests that that it makes sense. And you know, when you see similar domains developed, and you know, we say each domain is unique, right? But guess what? In this case, they're actually all fairly similar, aren't they? Whether you own C1 Finance, C1 Financial, C1 Capital, C1, you could see similar kind of companies branding on any one of these names or using any one of these names as their brand. So if you see that they're, you know, they're all taken or they're all being used, and then there's just this one other, you know, domain that's available and and by the way was on a drop list, so it was previously registered, you've probably got something that other people will want in the future.
You'd be a great person to have when we do this domain fund, meaning people love the fund manager. Hey, I want to go in with you. I know you go in with Josh Schoen on some names, and Josh, who's listening down there, he sold Shine.co for 80K.
We went in on a name today, me and Josh Show, and we just picked up braintech.com today.
Braintech. No, I hope he comes up next week because we don't have time today, because I want to hear about when he picked up that Shine.co, and then he said there was some negotiation with through an Aftermarket broker. So that was an 80K sale, because we're going to close the day in a few minutes. But Josh, you've also posted about Seed Pay. You saw somebody was offering, I think it was huge domains for $29.95, and you're like, Seed Pay, is that even good enough for that price? I mean, almost worth buying as like high wholesale, because you felt like Seed Pay really had, you would price it much higher. And I posted I'd price it at $12,995. I don't try to get greedy. You said you think it could even go for higher than that, and I would say VisionPay.com was on DN Journal list. It sold for $8,892. So I love pay names, but why did SeedPay.com get your attention at $29.95?
Yeah. So I'm gonna sound like a broken record here, right? But pay is the suffix, and seed is the brand. And sometimes with names like pay and tech, where they can be joined together to create a somewhat unique brand. In this case, the brand might be Seed Pay, or it might just be Seed, but in both cases, SeedPay.com is a great name. But you know, go have a look on Crunchbase and type in Seed. I mean, Seed is top, like A++ brand. Go on LinkedIn, you're going to see thousands of results of companies called Seed. And pay is one of the best suffixes there is, as you know, Todd. Pay names do very, very, very well. And I stumbled across that name because I was looking through closeouts to have a little bit of fun. And I saw seedpayment.com and seedpayments.com for $5 each. And of course, you know, I know that payment and payments.com as a suffix are okay. They're not nearly as good as pay. So what do you think the first thing that I do is? The first thing that I do is I say, okay, well, Seed Payment and seedpayments.com are names that I would possibly put in my portfolio. But first, I want to see what the deal is with Seed Pay. And I typed in seedpay.com and landed on a huge domains lander that were and saw that it was priced at 2,995, and I think to myself, well, that's interesting. That seems extremely low to me. If seedpay.com is priced at 2,995, I don't want to own Seed Payment and seedpayments.com, like, because I'm probably going to price those more along the lines of like $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, and nobody's going to buy those if seedpay.com is available for $2,000, right? Because it's a better name. So I also know that, SeedPay, I do a lot of data analysis. I see a lot of names going through DNX.com. I see a lot of people buying, these type of names, and SeedPay is registered in, I don't know, 20 extensions. It's a really good name. I know of multiple. I know that James Booth, for example, he said, had he seen my post, he would have bought it. He wasn't the buyer. But anyway, I posted that it was available, seedpay.com, and inevitably somebody bought it shortly after. Bought it from Huge Domains and now has it on Atom, listed for $50,000. And the cool thing is about that is that now that's listed for $50,000. It opens up the possibility to then go and buy Seed Payments and seedpayment.com and price those in the 5K range because they're inferior names. So then someone else got the opportunity to go and buy those two. And that's the full story.
There's a lot of opportunity here. Listen, before I get to Fabian, we're going to close out and let him make a comment, have a question. I wanted to say Sten mentioned to me privately that, he said, Josh, that was my favorite conversation at ICA. And I'm like, I talked to you for an hour too. He said, no, talking with you, Josh, was, he didn't say quite made his trip worth it, but he said it was certainly his favorite conversation of having with another domain investor. And he said, I'd really like to be on DNX Show so we can talk not about these intricacies of naming and all the bullshit we talked about the other day. We can talk specifically about his 12,000 names, his sell-through rate. He said he owns all brandable, meaning he considers all his names brandable, not any keyword type stuff. And once again, you talking about how imagination can be really hurtful, a detriment. I agree, but domainers we're like, you can give me a name and I can come up with 5 different ways. I'm like ChatGPT that would be a great usage of it. And that just doesn't help with regards to you selling names. Okay. Hey, Fabian, what's up?
Hey, Todd, Josh, great show. 2 hours just flies by. I just wanted to point out, I was looking here at Rick's list of acquisitions for 2024. He bought 50 names, and out of the 50, 17 were .ai. So 34% of his acquisitions were .ai. That's all I have to say. And I wanted to also say that it's not Akron, it's Okron. I think it was a typo and they fixed it. So I know you pointed that out earlier, Todd.
Thanks, Fabian, because I knew something was fishy there. He didn't get that, but we will go over these. There's so many things I wanted to go over today we didn't get to because 2 hours is plenty, and it keeps hope you come back for more. And plus we have lives, we got stuff to do. But great show, and Fabian, thanks for being here. The other week when I said I've met Fabian, now we've talked a few times, and now I really appreciate you coming on stage and always correcting me. I'm never going to forget
thanks,
that.
Todd. And I do have a question, but that's for your for the domain law show. So
fantastic. So definitely you guys come in there on Tuesdays. This Tuesday we're going to be talking about a lawsuit Jeffrey Newman's part of that basically somebody somebody had bought a name. The guy agreed to the price, $35,000, and then the seller backed out of it and said, "Hey, no, I want $350,000 because you're a big company, wanting this." And basically, we're going to talk about that case. But that's going to be it for today. Any closing words, Josh?
No, just thanks everyone for being here. Like Todd said, I don't know how long we're going to do this, but we plan to keep going. I would appreciate hearing feedback from all of you guys on what you would like to hear more of, what you enjoyed, what you didn't enjoy, so that next time we can cater to what you guys enjoy listening to the most or what you find the most beneficial. I try to be as transparent as possible, and yeah, that's it.
So just if you want to DM Josh or DM me, but the easiest way, go to dnx.show and click on contact the show and just say, hey, why don't you guys talk about this? Nothing's off limits. Like we said, possibly next week, if Shane doesn't do his own room, now I realize I started seeing some of the tweets. His own interview with Swetha wants to come on here. Yeah, I mean, it's going to, fantastic. We all have a ton of questions, but obviously this is a respectful place to come. So we appreciate all you guys listening. And like Josh said, hopefully next week, more of you, let's all, have an open conversation about domain name investing. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. That's going to be it for today.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.